Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Dnipro for the 4th round of the B category in TORUS Season 3. Yes, we're here to have a look at the 4th event in the B category from this season of the TORUS Cup, a month-long series organised by course setters from across the world and can be found here on the Tempo Simulator, the link to which can be found in the description of this video. Now today we are in Dnipro for a course set by Dnipro and his advisor for this was Libor Forst, and I haven't taken part in any events before that he set on the Tempo Simulator, but I do remember having a go at some of his competitions that he has done on Google Forms in the past, and I do remember them being very good, so I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what he's got in store for us today. So let's just jump straight into it now. We're going into the B category of the Season 3 section and we are into Event 4, which today is a 1 to 4,000 map with 2 meter contours. We have 8 stations with a 30-second penalty for every wrong answer, and the zero tolerance is 6 meters or a different mapped object with no side problems. We are in a park terrain and there'll be drawn flags in every photo, and then the special symbol of a black cross could be either a playground item, a high round metal container, or a beach canopy, otherwise known as an umbrella. So that's telling me already we might have a couple of sandy areas on the maps in this park, and so I am actually very excited to get straight into this. As always, my answers will be appearing in the top right hand corner of the screen, so you can see exactly what I'm putting, correct or wrong with the black and red letters respectively at the moment that I do. And yeah, with that, let's have a go at this 4th event in this season of the TORUS Cup as we load, and we're going to start slow and then we go into station 1. Okay, kites right in front of us, the stairs by Delta and no, by Echo and Foxtrot. That's the fence, so that corner is Delta, with that staircase being the wrong one. That's the fence of Bravo. Foot of those stairs must be Foxtrot, and a tree back there. I think it's very clearly not in the right place. And that was actually quite an interesting first station because there were a couple of things there which weren't normal for Trello. The main thing being that as we were looking at the map, the circle was moving rather than the map, and so the circle wasn't in the centre of the map for all of it. So that did throw me to start with, but we just adapted and moved on. The other thing was that I thought the heading was slightly off in this, and I really wanted the map rotated anti-clockwise slightly, but that didn't really affect it too much. I thought the area was very clear, and the tasks weren't too bad there. The first zero there being on the wrong staircase I thought was very clear. It was just the final zero, whether it was going to be Charlie or not. I was querying it slightly, but I do think if Charlie was on a tree, it was going to be on the left hand tree and we actually wanted the right hand. So I'm fairly confident that one is a zero, and that was an interesting first station. So I am now prepared for the style of tasks that he is going to throw in as we move on to station 2. Okay, there's a knoll potentially by Echo and another one by Foxtrot at the back and another one by Alpha. That there, so that's the curve, so I don't think anything is there, whereas that hill is Alpha, and I don't think there's anything back there either. That path junction is Bravo, and that hill is Charlie. And so when the photo came up there, I definitely said that Echo and Foxtrot were on knolls, but it did turn out they were just marked with form lines. I don't have an issue with that. I think that was good mapping. And so when the map came, what I saw on there was quite a rounded path, and I think that was what was in front of us, with Bravo on a path junction with another path going through it, and then it went all the way around to Foxtrot. For the first task, we wanted a corner of open land that was on a junction between the path right on the right hand side going straight down the right hand side of the photo and the path behind the hill that Foxtrot was on. So I think that was pretty clearly a zero as it was miles away. And then we came forward to the Alpha hill. The third task did confuse me slightly as I couldn't see a building there at all, but I think it must have just been out the photo and that one was clearly a zero. And then we had the path junction of Bravo, and I think it was Charlie on the hill at the back, but that station was another interesting one, and I don't think I've got anything wrong so far, but that could all change now as we go into station 3. Okay, play equipment at the back, that's going to be the black cross with some islands of open land. Those are the islands, and I don't believe there's anything there, with Foxtrot in there, and that is now Delta with nothing on that island, and I'm going to believe Bravo's there. And I did really like that station actually. The key things there was the player coming on the left hand side, which I didn't actually notice on the map at all, but we didn't need it for any of the tasks really. And the 3 circles of what I called firstly was open land, but I think it was very clearly woodland afterwards because there were so many trees on them. And so when the first task came, I think it was clear it was a 0, as we could see 3 circles in front of us, and we wanted it between the 3rd and 4th circle, which was just on the left hand side of the photo, and no kites were there. And then the other tasks did seem to fall into place there. The 4th one being the wrong circle as well, was just making sure we were paying attention, and it was really distracting us for the 5th one, where I was having a good debate between Bravo and 0, but I did just go with Bravo in the end because I thought I could sit there for ages, and I'm probably going to put Bravo anyway. So we will see whether that's right in the end, but I think that was another good station, and we will just move now on to station 4. Okay, pass coming through with this sort of cross shape by Echo and Foxtrot. I can't see a cross shape, but I can... Okay, so that's that there. So that if that's the woodlands, then... Okay, those are the islands. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So that's got to be Foxtrot. Boulder's back there. So I don't think anything's on that. I don't think this is taking a while. Delta is on that one though, and Charlie's there, and is Bravo at the back on the right one. I'm going to go with it. And that actually was a really interesting 4th station. It threw me quite a lot, obviously spending 45 seconds on it, and really it was just trying to place us at the start, because I had seen potentially a cross in the paved area where Echo and Foxtrot was, but there wasn't one on the map at all, so I had to really read the map properly to work out exactly where we are. I also saw the fence to the right hand side of the photo and thought it was the fence furthest down on the photo, but it did turn out it was the one more upwards in the photo. And really for a B course I did think that was quite hard, although that may just be my first impressions of it, and it may have been a lot easier, especially with identifying the correct boulder. That did take quite a while, but that may have just been me, and there's nothing wrong with having at least one hard station in the competition to separate the top couple of people. But that does bring us to the halfway point of the competition now, and we will move straight on to station 5. Okay, there's an island of open land with a tree in it. There's a fence to the right hand side. That's the open land. That corner will be Bravo, with Delta on the end of that hedge, and Charlie does seem to be on that building. Open land is Alpha, and building is a 0. And in that 5th station I've definitely made up for the time that I lost in the previous one, because I did that quite quickly, and I do think that was a clear station. Spotting the islands of open land, as seemed to be the key for quite a few of these, was good there, and then the fence with the building within it matched with Echo and Foxtrot, and so that was all able to help place Bravo to start with, and then coming forward to the hedge of Delta, and moving around a couple more controls before that final task where we had the building within the fence and Echo and Foxtrot were both on the fence. So that one was definitely a 0, as it was a different mapped object, but I do think that's quite a cruel 0, and for a B course I think that might be slightly too hard, but I don't think it would have been too bad if you were paying attention. And yeah, I thought that was quite a nice station, but we will now go on to station 6. Okay, the bits in front of us with Echo on are probably going to be mapped as a hedge as well. Okay, those are the pluses, or the walls, but I think they're the wrong ones. Hedge over there. I still feel like there's nothing on that hedge, so I'm zeroing that, and that hedge I do believe is Delta. That all the way over there, I'm going to zero that again, and that end of the hedge, I think that should be wrong. I think there's a wrong control description there, I'm pretty sure, and that one should say wall rather than hedge. And that was another hard station with all the parallel errors. I think the first task being on the wrong set of walls, I was still struggling a lot to place myself, and so it did take me a small while, and then also being on the wrong flower bed for the second task, before coming to Echo for the third one, and if you put Echo for the second one, you would have probably realised you were wrong for that. And then the fourth one also being a 0, so I'm pretty sure there were 3 zeros in that, and that again does seem like a lot for a B course. So as much as that third one was fairly clear, I do think this is actually very hard. But the final one was clear, although it did also have a wrong control description, as I'm pretty sure it had linear thicket and it was actually on a wall. So we will check that when we go back, but we will just move now on to the penultimate station of the day, which is station 7. Okay, the islands again with Foxtrot on a hill right at the back. Crikey, how are we spotting that? I suppose that's the hill, so we can't be looking at that. With Delta. And this one? Corner of the open land. Well, it's not Alpha. Is it Bravo? I think Bravo's on top of that, but what is that? I'm going Bravo, but I don't think that's clear at all. Foxtrot over there, and between the two thickets. Between which two thickets? Well, it's between the back two. I don't know. I'm zeroing it, but I really don't know there. I think that could easily be Charlie or Delta, or whichever kite it was. But that was another tough station. And when the map loaded, I immediately thought it was going to be tough because I was struggling to spot whether we were in the right place or not. But then because I'd spotted the hill of Foxtrot, I knew that that first one must be a 0, and then the second one must be Delta or Echo. I can't remember quite which one it was at the moment on the tree. But then things did get a lot harder, especially with trying to place Bravo, because it did look like it was on top of a wall that wasn't on the map. So that was hard, but I did just go with it. And then Foxtrot was cleared, but Charlie being between the hedges or not, I have zeroed it. It could easily be Charlie, but it didn't really seem to be fitting for me. And that was quite a throwing penultimate station, but we can't let that affect us now as we go into the final station of the day, which is station 8. Okay, there's the canopy, so that is going to be the Black Cross. Out the back there's some water. Is it Echo? I can believe that's Echo. Between the two, I think that's behind us. That corner, that does look like Alpha. Building corner, or south side of building. I'm pretty sure Charlie isn't there. And I'm pretty sure that's also out the photo. So it does turn out Charlie was actually there on the position of that building, but I was seeing it in front of the fence. So we will have to go and look at that, but it is 2 mistakes with a time of 243 seconds, which takes me to 303. I don't think that's too bad, especially since I was confused a lot with a few harder stations in there. Let's go have a look at them though, and with station 1 I didn't think it was too bad, apart from potentially the angle of the map was slightly out. But what I think was clear was the 2 staircases, and there is a rounded bit of paved area. So we clearly have 2 staircases on the paths here, and there is the rounded paved area. So what we want is the southern inside corner of the open land, and looking here we're coming from the left hand staircase, come down, and Delta does seem to be in that corner, so I thought that was quite a nice Delta to start off the station. And then we go up to the left hand of the staircases, and we want the top of the bottom staircase. So over here there are actually 2 staircases, and so the bottom one is this one, and there's nothing at the top of it. So I thought that was quite a nice 0 before then coming forward to the end of the fence at the end of the first staircase, and so this one is definitely Bravo on the end of this fence. And then going out to the other side, we wanted the foot of the right hand staircase, and looking over here, Echo's on the top of it, Foxtrot's on the bottom of it, so Foxtrot is at the foot. And so that was a nice Foxtrot before then the final task. We wanted to identify the right hand of 2 trees at the back, and this is really the task where the heading of the station did matter, as I could see that Charlie was on a tree, but I was struggling to work out whether it was the right tree. Eventually I said it was too far to the left, and it was a 0, and it does turn out it was correct, as there aren't any other trees at the back there to the left of Charlie, and I think we actually wanted that tree there right at the back. So that one did end up being a 0 for the final task in the first station, and I think compared to some of the other stations in this event, I don't think this one was too bad at all. So well done if you did manage to get that one right. And it was still going well going into station 2, where here I saw in front of us that we had a couple of hills with Alpha and Echo, and another hill over there with Foxtrot. Originally I said they were going to be knolls, and so when the map came I couldn't see any knolls, so I was confused for a small second, but then realised that I could just about see the form lines of the hills. So I had Charlie and Alpha on these 2 hills back there, and Foxtrot on the hill all the way out the back. And so really once I've seen Foxtrot on the hill out the back, what you then want is the open land further behind Foxtrot. So going out there, going behind Foxtrot, there are no kites behind Foxtrot, as we are going slightly to the right of Foxtrot, and with Foxtrot being the rightmost kite, there can't be any any kites further right than Foxtrot, so this one must be a 0 as it's going to be on the corner back out there. So that was a nice first task, and then we came forward to the 2 hills, and this is really why I don't like the fact that the map doesn't move, as we are just going right to the edge of the map now, and it does just feel really weird. The other thing I will say here, although it's not too crucial, is that this number 1 just keeps staying as number 1 seemingly, so it does imply there's only one task in this station, but it doesn't really confuse much as it's not crucial. However, I do think that changing numbers can be useful. But here we wanted the hill, and we had already placed alpha on the top of that hill, so I think it was quite a nice alpha for the second task, before we then went to the stony ground. And at no point did I spot any stony ground in the circle, but it is clearly there because what I'd seen was the building instead. And so really what I said here was we're going left of alpha, and there is no kites left of alpha. I can now see the building there as the green thing with the stony ground just there, and there are no kites on it, so that one is a nice 0 for the third task. And then for the fourth task we come to a path junction, and actually here I have just noticed the letters change from A to F to A to E, which is definitely another mistake and isn't very crucial, but again it's just the fine details in these events. But here, looking at the path junction, we're going between the Alpha and Echo hills, and there is clearly a path junction here with Bravo in the middle of it. So that was a nice Bravo for the fourth task before going to the hill behind this Bravo junction, and it had to really be Charlie for the fifth task. So as a second station, I don't think it was too bad. I think I probably enjoyed it more than station 1, and really that was quite nice for the technical level of it. And then moving on to station 3, this was probably my favourite station of the day. What I saw here in the photo to start with was 3 circles, and I'd originally placed them as open land, but there are clearly many trees in them, so those must be circles of woodland, and they are surrounded by paved areas. So when the map came, we obviously have 4 in the circle, so we could be looking at any 3 of the 4, but this is definitely the last one, so we must be looking at the furthest 3 round, so it must be these 3 here. And so what we want here from the third one is the area of flower bed just to the left of it. So this is the third one, and we go just to the left of it to this corner here, and there aren't any kites. So this one was quite a nice 0 to start off the station, before we then for the second task move to the copse in the centre of the biggest bit of paved area, and it's the second one from the far end. So this is the first one, this is the second one. Foxtrot isn't quite in the middle of the circle for me, but it's definitely within 6 metres. So that was a nice Foxtrot for the second task. And then for the third one, if you got the first one wrong, putting Delta, you would have realised your mistake here and gone Delta for this task, because we're just coming from the Foxtrot circle into the flower bed. So that was a nice Delta for the third task. And then for the fourth one, we come all the way to the left hand side, and in knowing that Delta's here, Charlie's going to be on this circle, and so the circle that we actually want is going to be out the photo, and that was quite a nice quick 0 for me there. And then finally I had to think about this one slightly, but I did just go with it straight away because I thought I could be sat here for hours thinking about it, wanting the eastern part of this copse. And so looking out there, we're going to the right hand side of the play equipment, which is this bit, and so we look at all these trees, and Bravo is kind of in the middle of these trees. But how do we know it's precisely in the correct location? To be honest, I'm still not sure it definitely is, apart from I know it is the answer to this task, and so I do have to believe that Bravo is in the centre of the circle. And really, is that the way we should be solving tasks here? Not really, especially since it's a B course. I think things should be very definitive, and so this was the first sign that some of the tasks in this event may not be the best, and I think it definitely went downhill the further we went into the competition, but we will see that later. But as a third station, I thought that was quite nice. Maybe moving the Bravo task to be Alpha instead on the corner of the play equipment would have improved that a lot. And yeah, that brought us straight into station 4, and this is really where I started thinking about it a lot. As for this first task, what we have here is the southern inside corner of this open land, and this took me a while to get because I'd seen quite a few things here. Firstly, I'd seen this path coming in from Echo and Foxtrot, and I'd seen this path coming in from just below Charlie, and said there was going to be a cross in the paths here. So when the map came, there wasn't any crosses in the paths, and that confused me to start with. But then what I saw is the fence coming along on the right hand side, and thought it could potentially be this one, but then things didn't start to match up at all. So I had to go off different things, and what I eventually saw were these 3 islands in the paved area, and this was a common theme really actually in the event. These islands definitely helped place us very well, and so once I spotted them, I knew that we must be in this bit here going up and just to the right of this path, so it must actually be the Echo and Foxtrot junction, and we want the northern patch of open land, so it's going to be the one on the right hand side, and Foxtrot does look like it's on the southern inside corner. So I was fairly happy after 21 seconds to put Foxtrot for that task, before we then moved to the second task, and we wanted a boulder. And really, to be honest, it's not the hardest task in the day, but I do think this is too hard for a B course in my personal opinion, because we're just looking along to the left hand side, and there are so many boulders there, and I think the one we actually want is that one just to the left of Alpha. But looking at it, you could easily look down there and just look at Alpha Alpha and see the boulder and think it's about the right place. You could see Bravo on the boulder behind it and think it's possibly Bravo, and you could also see Charlie at the front here and say that Charlie is on the eastern side of that boulder, and so this one must be Charlie. So really, as an A course competitor, I thought this was a very hard task, and so probably an A course standard rather than a B course. But I think looking at it, it didn't take me as long as the first task, and to me I eventually came to the answer it was a 0, and that was right. So well done if you did manage to spot that. Before the third task came, and we wanted the corner of the open land right in front of us by these islands. So we come right in front of us and Delta is in that corner. So that was a nice and quick Delta for the third one. And in task 42 I had placed Charlie on the boulder that we came to for 44. So I was able to go quickly for Charlie for that task as well. Before the final task we came and we wanted the western boulder in the circle, and it is just boulder so we want on top of it. So I hadn't quite noticed western to start with, so I was playing a bit trying to work out exactly which boulder it wanted. But then when we saw the western, I went out to where Bravo was, as we were going behind the boulder for 42, and I tried to work out whether I thought Bravo was in the right place for this task. But Bravo's definitely on top of a boulder, and there is a boulder back there to the left hand side and the right hand side of Bravo, so I was able to come to the conclusion that that was Bravo to end off that station. And as I keep saying, I do think that was a hard station. It wasn't the longest time I stuck on a station, but I do think really there were a couple of bits where I was struggling and I had to think, and I normally don't mind that because I like to be challenged. But for a B course, is it too hard? Well, we'll see that in a minute when we go to the percentages. But now we came into the second half of the day, into station 5, and I think the second half did actually open with quite a nice station, and I did actually like this station a lot because what I saw here to start with was quite nicely, there's a fence with a building, there's an island of open land potentially with a distinctive tree in it, I would have mapped it as, and there's also a fence to the left hand side with some open land and also a hedge actually. So when the map came up I thought it was quite nice to be able to see the fence with the building and then the island as well, and we worked our way to the left hand side to the fence, and there is fairly clearly a corner there, so that was quite a nice Bravo to start off the station. Before we then came forward to the hedge, and we wanted the eastern hedge, so it's going to be the one furthest away from us, and we want the eastern end. So I was fairly confident to say that Delta was on the eastern end of that hedge, so that was quite a nice Delta for the second task. And then for the third task we came to the building at the back, and I hadn't quite seen this one to start with as it does kind of blend in a bit with all the mirrors, but there is clearly a building there, and Charlie does seem to be on the northwestern outside corner of it, so that was quite a nice Charlie for the third one. And then for the fourth task we came forward and we wanted the open land on the left hand side of the photo, wanting the western inside corner, and looking out there I think that was pretty clearly Alpha just to the left hand side of the hedge as well, crossing the paved area, so that was a nice Alpha for the fourth one. And then for this fifth one we wanted the northwestern outside corner of the building, and we are coming to the right hand side of the photo and you can see it's the building enclosed by the fence, so we know it's going to be Echo, Foxtrot or 0, but looking at it Echo and Foxtrot are both on the fence, and so neither of them on the building, and because the 0 tolerance says 5 meters or another mapped object, this one must be a 0. But I think this task to end the station was quite difficult, and so well done if you did manage to get that one right. And actually for this fifth station I don't think that was too bad at all. I did really like this station, but then we moved on to station 6, and I think this was really a very difficult station and probably too difficult for a B course, but I will talk through it now to try and show my opinions on this. And for this first task what we wanted was the southern wall in the circle, and we want the southeastern end of it. Now firstly I will say this isn't the southern wall, because you can just see at the edge of the circle there is a small bit of wall poking in, and so that one is definitely the southern wall, and I think really we should be describing this one as the southwestern wall. I think that fits better, but I do think it's kind of clear we want this wall here. But how are we going to notice that this is the wrong wall, as really there is very clearly some walls out here, and there are 2 in the circle just here, and we want the right hand one, so that would probably put me as Charlie. However, I had noticed this bend in the paved area here, and there isn't really a bend in the paved area on the right hand side of this wall, so I didn't really know exactly where we were to start with, but I was fairly happy that this one was going to be a 0 as it was behind us. Now personally for a B course I think that's quite cruel, especially as the first task, as really I feel like we should be able to see the features that zeros are going to be on. I can appreciate for an A course that is a brilliant task, but for a B I think it's slightly too hard. And then for the second task we came across 2 bits of paved area to the garden bed, and we want the northern end. And so looking at it I was immediately looking looking at Delta. But I think at this point I had just about managed to place us on the two walls here, and so we wanted the garden bed to the other side of the paved area, and I can see Alpha's on the end of a wall, and we're going to the right hand side of that wall to get to the garden bed, and I can just about see it there. I'm presuming some of it's hiding behind the Bravo kite, but I was fairly happy to go with 0 for this second task, and I think again as a second 0 I do think that was quite hard, especially since we moved to the third task and we wanted a flower bed with the exact same description, and this one was actually Delta on the correct flower bed. I think quite a lot would have put Delta for the second task and probably zeroed the third one straight away, as there is another garden bed here, but that one is clearly Delta to me, and so I think that was quite a nice third task to finally help us anchor, especially coming into the fourth task and we go miles to the right hand side and we do wonder if we have actually anchored correctly, as Foxtrot is very clearly on a corner of open land which does fit the description, and so trying to work out exactly which one it is, I think just trusting that Delta was the correct answer for the third task, Foxtrot's going to be on this corner here instead, so it's not the right corner and this one is a 0. Well done if you did manage to spot that. And then finally we come to this task, and this is where the wrong control description is, because the control description says it's the northeastern thicket and the southeastern end of it, but there's only one linear thicket in the circle, and so we don't need the arrow. However, the northeastern end of that linear thicket isn't in the circle, so this confused me to start with, but then I noticed that actually it was a wall that we were going for rather than a thicket, and that is a similar control description, it's just the circles are filled in. I think if we go to 61 you can see the difference. So here we did actually want a wall rather than a thicket, and so the northeastern one is going to be this one here rather than the one below it, and so we want the southeastern end, which is the left hand of the two ends on this end, and so it is going to be Bravo there. But that is a wrong control description, and that really shouldn't be happening at all. If you're just going off the centre of the circle, that wouldn't have affected you, but if you, like me, looked at the control description and saw linear thicket, you may have thought it was meant to be on this hedge at the back instead. But it did turn out that was Bravo to end off the station, and I do think that was a very hard station. With 3 zeros in it, that's probably too many for a B course, if I'm perfectly honest. At least my advisor for my B course told me that 3 zeros was too many, and so I toned my stations down a bit. I appreciate we can't really put a number on the number of zeros, and so having 3 zeros once in a while is okay, but especially for this station with it being very hard to place us, I personally don't like the fact there were 3 zeros. But yeah, that was the 6th station, and then for the 7th station it didn't really get much easier at all, as here to start with what we wanted was an island of open land. And what do we have in the photo to work with? Well, we have these 3 circles of open land, and there are 3 circles of open land in the circle, so we could easily be in the right place. We also have these rectangular strips of open land with thickets on them as well, and by the centre of the circle there are strips of open land with thickets in them, so we can use neither of those methods to tell him we're in the right place or not. What instead told me we were in the right place is this hill at the back with Foxtrot on it, and if you look at where the hill is on the map, it has to be this hill here. So Foxtrot is on this hill, and so if we are stood here, we aren't going to be able to see Foxtrot in the position that we can see it. It's going to be further to the left, and so this one must be a 0, as I believe the area that we are actually stood in is the area that we came to for the second task, which is now this area of 3 circles, and the control description here says hill, and we want to the northern part of the hill. Now looking in front, we want the middle circle of the 3, and so with these 3 being the circles, the middle one is Delta. There is a small hill there, and so Delta is probably on the northern part of that hill, and that puts the second answer as Delta. So I was fairly quick for that task. That one was a lot clearer, but then we came to the one that took me 22 seconds here, and this wasn't the longest task in the station, as what we want here is the northern inside corner of some open land, and it's the middle piece of open land, so it's going to be the middle of the 3 strips. And we look here and we can see that there are 2 bits of paved area, so there are 3 strips, and this middle strip we're going to follow along, and once we reach here there is only 1 piece of paved area, and so there's 2 strips. So we know that this must be the junction kind of about where Bravo is, but is the answer to this going to be Bravo or 0? Now immediately what I'm seeing here is the Bravo kite is higher than the Alpha kite, and that would make sense if we're going upwards in the photo, so I can believe that. What I can't really get my head round is the fact that the Bravo kite is higher than the Charlie kite, so that would imply that Bravo is actually higher up than Charlie if the canes are the same length, and so Bravo can't be in the corner of the open land, and I probably would have placed it potentially on the top of this small square of marble like the one over here and the couple around here which aren't actually mapped, and so I was toying with the idea of it being a 0 for quite a long time. But the thing that made me put Bravo was it did look in about the right place horizontally, and again that shouldn't be really how we're telling the location of some kites, but that did do it for me. It did take me 22 seconds to get there, so I do think again it was very hard, but we did get there in the end, and the answer was Bravo. So well done if you did manage to get that one quicker than me. That did throw me quite a bit. And then for the fourth task, we had quite a nice fourth task. As we went out to the hill that we had identified to start with, notice here that actually the task here is for Alpha to Echo, and the correct answer was Foxtrot. That's quite interesting, and I think that's a bigger mistake for the Alpha to Echo, but I can live with it. The one thing I can't really live with is the lower symbol, as where actually is the higher up hill in this circle. This is all one hill. I can appreciate there's a contour on a form line, but this is all one hill. There's no upper hill and lower hill. What this is trying to say is it's the lower part of the hill, but that comes in column G where it's saying that it's the western part, and I think that's all we really need. We don't need this at all, as there is only one hill in the circle and Foxtrot is definitely on the western part of it. So for me, not really reading the control description properly, that was a pretty clear Foxtrot. And then for the final task, we came to the middle between two thickets, and this one I spent a long time on and I ended up getting it wrong, because what we wanted here was between two thickets and it's on the middle strip. So Charlie is definitely on the middle strip, so it's going to be Charlie or nothing, and there is a thicket to the left hand side where Charlie is, but at no point can I really see a thicket to the right hand side of where Charlie is. And so I was pretty convinced that there is another thicket to the left hand side of Charlie, and Charlie's not between the correct two, and this one is a 0. But I do believe there is actually a thicket hiding behind this thicket on the first line, and so Charlie is actually between the two thickets. That again is a very cruel task, and for a B course I do think that was quite hard. I know some of you would have just gone Charlie straight away, but for me, looking at the fine detail, it didn't seem to quite match up correctly, and so I zeroed it. But well done if you did manage to put that one was Charlie, and again, well done if you did manage to get all of that station right. I thought it was very hard again, and things didn't really get much easier as we went to the final station of the day, and what we had here was just an open area of beach with a bit of water to the right hand side. There's some buildings by Delta, I think he's on a corner, and I hadn't put Charlie on a corner yet, and very clearly in front of us there's an umbrella which is going to be a black cross. So the first task came up, and what we wanted here was a fence behind the buildings off to the right hand side, and so looking out there we've got the buildings and there is a fence behind there with Echo on the southeastern end of it. So I was fairly happy to say that that one was Echo for the first task going into the river. That was quite a nice start. Before the second task we came forward and we wanted between two umbrellas. Now you could be toying with this one for a while thinking it's Bravo or 0, but really for me we can only see one umbrella, so Bravo's not going to be between the two umbrellas as the other one must be behind us, and so that to me was a fairly clear 0 for the second task. Before we then move to the corner of the fence, and we want the northeastern outside corner of this fence, and so we look out to the left hand side and we can see that the fence does bend there, so that is going to be the bend that we want, and Alpha does seem to be on the northeastern outside corner, so that was again a nice Alpha for the third task. This fourth task was what was throwing me a bit, as what we want here is the middle building and we want the southern side of it, and we look out there and we're looking for the second one from the right hand side. So Delta is on the right hand side one and we want the second one, so it's going to be Charlie or 0. Now for me the southern side of this building is about where Charlie is, but looking at the cane of Charlie I thought Charlie was the other side of the fence, and so it's a different mapped object and is a 0, but it does look like it was intended to be on the building instead, and again I don't know whether that's clear enough because I can still clearly see it being on the front of the fence and there doesn't seem to be any divide in the cane to show it's not, so I'm still convinced that one's a 0, but it does turn out it was Charlie, and well done if you did manage to put that. Before finally we move to the border of the river and the sand, and we want the western tip of this river. So looking at it we've said the Echo's on the fence, so it's going to be Foxtrot or 0, but if you look where it bends it comes right and left there to get to Foxtrot, so that's here on this little indent, but then we have to go for another little indent to get to the bit that we actually want, so it is going to be out of the photo, and this one is a 0 for the final task. I thought that was a bit clearer, but I still think that was quite hard, and really the final two tasks were definitely the toughest to end off this day, and I did think this event was very hard. The final 3 stations were very tough, the 4th station was very tough, and there were a couple of issues with the maps and control descriptions etc in there which did make it a lot harder. So well done if you did manage to do well in today, and thank you for Dnipro for putting together this event. Even if I did think there were a couple of problems in it, I still found quite a few of the stations very fun, so thank you for doing that. Let's go and have a look at where I would have come on the leaderboard though, with 303 seconds, and you can see I would have come 4th. I don't think that's too bad, but you can see that no one actually completed it with no errors, as we had Julie in 1st place, 4 seconds ahead of Jurgely, who was then actually 70 seconds ahead of Carol, so it was a very clear 2 front runners there. In terms of where Julie managed to win the event though, it does look like that potentially it was in station 6 where she did win the station and was 14 seconds ahead of Jurgely, so well done for doing that. For me the most interesting thing here in the percentages was within Station 5 here, where actually there was one task which was at 18%, and this was the lowest percentage in the day, with 240 going with Foxtrot and 21 with Echo, but 60 getting it right with Zero. This was the one that was on the building within the fence, and straight away I thought I didn't really like the task too much because it was on the building rather than the fence, and that's why the Zero Tolerance was different mapped feature. And it does turn out that most of you did go with Foxtrot, and this was a very hard task, so well done to the 18% of you that did manage to get it right. And really, other than a few tasks other than this which were quite low, you did actually manage to answer quite a lot of these tasks very well, so well done for doing so. I think even though it was a tough day, you still managed to do a very good job. Let's see what this event has done to the overall results in the B category though, and you can see that Jurgely has managed to hold on to the lead there after having a win and 2 second places, now almost 3 points ahead of Ziga, who is just under a point ahead of Giacomo. So Jurgely's starting to get a bit of a lead here, but that could easily be clawed back as this is still very close, Odid being 0.6 points behind Giacomo and Anna being just over a point behind Odid. So that does bring us to the end of the second week here in the B category. Again, thank you to Dnipro and Libor for putting an event together. It was still fun to take part in, even if there were a couple of mistakes. And yet, as we're crossing the halfway stage in this competition, I'm looking forward to coming back for the third week and seeing exactly how this leaderboard plays out. But for now, this is the end of today's video, so thank you all again for watching. If you'd like to like the video as always and subscribe to the channel, making sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button and select all so you're notified whenever I release a video, and also be remembering to share these videos. As always, I do think these B courses are very good for newcomers to start getting into the sport, and so if you do have any orienteering friends that aren't already competing in Trelo, make sure you're showing the simulator and these videos with them. And as always, be commenting down below any extra things you think I've missed, any extra analysis points and small little sections you think I could add to this video. And I will join you again next week for the 5th round in the B category of TORUS Season 3.